What is up, True Fitness family? Welcome to another episode of the True Fitness Podcast. I am your host and head coach, Adrian Conway, and I'm joined by our other coach today, Chance Porter, who is also oversees our competitor design and does one-to-one programming. So if you guys are looking and you're shopping, I know a guy who's going to help get you right for the 2026 season. And that's what we're on here to discuss, Chance. It is officially November 7th. We have got our new cycle actually starting next week that is going to take athletes into what I would categorize as like this is kind of like the last phase of off-season training, right? So it's the build up into that preseason block that will peak them for the competitive season. This year, we know when the Open starts. We know that quarterfinals are back. There's a lot of people that are extremely excited about this opportunity that want 2026 to be the best year ever. And then, of course, we work directly with, especially a lot of our one-to-one clients or athletes that are like, this isn't about quarters for me. This is about semifinals. And I want to give myself an opportunity to compete at a few, perhaps, because they want to make it to the CrossFit Games or at least rub shoulders with the fittest on earth and see how they stack up. So with that being said, I want to introduce our cycle that we're going to start on Monday, which is, I believe, the 10th, right? I don't got a calendar pulled up.
Yeah.
And I'm bad about dates, but yes, it's the 10th. That it kicks off. It's going to be our True Competitor and our True Competitor Pro Track, which you guys can find at TTRUfitness.com. It'll take you to the link where you can sign up and get 7 days of a free trial for this. But this cycle is going to be called Grit, Chans. Before you dive into exactly what it looks like, it is our Grit cycle. And I lobbed up the name and you were like, well, that's what they're going to need to be able to have success through this phase. And I think it's important for us to kind of elaborate on why, what we're going to focus on, and some of the intricacies that we'll build around to help people become the fittest versions of themselves in through the next season. But GRIT is an acronym, and it stands, folks, basically for general capacity for the G, resiliency. We're talking from not just psychological, but also from a joint structure and, of course, volume tolerance, intensity, because we will vary some of the intensity with our approaches from interval weight training to structured single modality and several modality erg training sessions, AM, PM, especially if you're a double day athlete. Not all of our athletes that follow True Competitor are double day athletes. And then, of course, technicality, an opportunity for us to refine gymnastics quality so that we have a baseline to build upon. So this grit cycle could be summed up in a little bit of that, to get things rocking and rolling. But Chance, talk to me a little bit about almost like an umbrella view of this cycle and kind of where you envision it taking people into January.
Yeah. So basically this is like you said, the last cycle before we start open prep, which will probably be like around January. So a lot of this to me is just kind of getting any, weaknesses that we have squared away. So a lot of it is, hey, if there's any little more strength work we need to do, or positional work in the Olympic lifts or the squatting or whatever the case is. And then obviously we want to still keep the capacity, right? We want to still keep the fitness, that's for sure. But a lot of it is also like, hey, gymnastics, just gymnastics by themselves. Hey, cool. I'm good at handstand walking. Can I do whatever these things, these unbroken feet, or I'm good at toes to bar. How many unbroken sets of whatever can I do? And just building kind of that base before we kind of add it into, hey, now I got to do big sets of toes to bar under some fatigue. So it's just kind of building the base. And then we worry about that when the open comes and we start doing open prepping for quarterfinals and all that stuff. Then we start to mix it all together.
I love that. And I think that's a very good top-down perspective. And to just follow that up a little bit, we understand that most athletes specifically that have the desire to, level up. It doesn't matter. I don't think CrossFit's on the level system. I think they might have let that go last year. It was like a one and done type system. But the idea is that from a general perspective, when we're programming for a group, we understand that everybody needs to get stronger. And we're not going to necessarily probably get into Rogue in detail. But if you watch the Rogue Invitational, and we understand that that's not the CrossFit Games, so it's cool. Rogue is what it is. You got to be really strong. Really freaking strong. If you even go back and watch the 2025 CrossFit Games, you not only need to be strong, but you need to be a powerhouse, Chance. Like, look at the podium. Look at the athletes who have success. Powerhouses. Do they have technicality? Absolutely. But guess what they got? Legs for days. Legs and shoulders and hips for days. Like, they can run, yes, but boy, they can bike. boy, they can row. And that's a lot of times that's a result of the time they're putting in, pulling from the floor, developing not just like a 1 rep max deadlift, but how well do you cycle 80%? And not just a 1 rep max back squat and front squat, but how well do you cycle 80% and in what amount of time? And what's your 20 rep max back squat? And right. So the idea here, folks, so you guys understand as we dive into a little bit of the structure, is that we know everybody needs to get stronger in our sport. And it's simply, it doesn't matter what you think, because it doesn't matter what I think. Sometimes I worry, and we can have another episode about this down the road. That's why I love having you on staff, Chans. We can have these candid conversations. Sometimes I worry our sport is too strength biased when it comes to like real fitness. So, but that's a different topic for a different day. Our job as coaches is for us to prepare our athletes for what we know. And we both nerd out on this stuff. We geek out on this stuff, knowing the history, knowing.com, watching what Dave's flavor is, watching what Adrian Bosman's flavors are. And we just know without a doubt that we need to get people stronger. Now, you mentioned something pretty unique, and I think that people might need to understand the value of this. But you talk about gymnastics, but you talk about the gymnastics in absence of like heavy breathing and all the other things. Why is that an important base to build prior to what we will categorize as like preseason?
Because I think sometimes, you talk to any person in an affiliate and they're like, hey, I need to get better at muscle ups. So, I'm going to throw in a workout with muscle ups in them. And then the problem could be that, it could be the movement quality in the muscle up. Or it could just be that like, hey, I can only do 5 in a row and then I start to fail.
Yep.
And the last thing we want to do is teach our body to fail. I mean, why would we teach those habits? Right. So I think a lot of it is just sometimes building a base, okay, if I'm going to learn the squat snatch, okay, what am I going to do first? All right, well, I'm going to start with an empty barbell and I'm going to build in progressions. But what I'm not going to do is the first time I learn a squat snatch is going to do, 5 rounds of a 500-meter row, 20 box jumps, and then 10 squat snatch at a weight that I'm not comfortable doing. But like, that's the way people look at it when it comes to gymnastics. So I think a lot of times it's just like, imagine if it was a barbell, you do barbell, just the barbell lift, you just do snatch technique work all the time, but you're not willing to do that with the gymnastics. And then you wonder why you're good at lifting, but you suck doing more than, 20 ring muscle ups in a workout, or you can't handstand walk more than 50 feet unbroken or whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah. And I completely agree, man. It's one of those things where people need to understand that the first step towards success and improvement is just do a thing better. Like, everyone thinks that there needs to be physiological adaptation. And I can't say everyone thinks that, but most people, when they come to us for training and programming, they're like, yo, I need to suffer, man. My muscles should always be burning. I should be sweating and breathing a ton. Like, I want to, how Rich looks like in the middle of a workout. I want to look like that. Like, and I'm like, okay, but have you ever watched Rich move? It's flawless.
Yeah.
And we're talking about in the prime of his career when I referenced that. And so his movement efficacy was just at the top tier. What people have to understand is that takes practice and skill work. So right now we will develop capacity for sure. In the grit cycle, you will develop capacity, but it will be in the absence of a lot of heavy breathing and things that can distract from high quality movement. And I think the big takeaway there is that you almost want to use this cycle to get the most out of it, like you're a gymnast, like move like a gymnast, right? Like, get your feet together, point your toes, get in that hollow position, hit the arch position at the right time, in the right timing, film every set, watch it. You don't got to send it to us every time, but film it so you can watch it and get better. And I think that's where we get a lot of space here in these next 8 weeks to build towards when it's going to be really important then to, do battery type testing, or like do things where it's like, okay, now it's 4 time and 4 max reps and in a certain AMRAP or with another movement. So I think that's really important. And I appreciate you pointing that out, because I think that's one of the big takeaways at this time of year that people will overlook, is that they just want to start already like this process of, let's just do the open workouts.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even, if someone came to me and they said, well, I can do 15 ring muscle ups unbroken, like, who cares? That's good enough. It's like, okay, that may be the case, but can you do it more efficient to make it 20? Can you do 15 at the end of a workout? Can you do 3 rounds of 15 unbroken? Like, right. At some point, right? I mean, all these athletes are getting so freakish that they can do 50 unbroken toes to bar. So it kind of comes down to how fast can you do them, and how many times can you sustain doing big unbroken chunks,
Right.
Because if everyone can do it, then there's got to be a separator somewhere. So even if you feel that you're like so fit at toes to bar, you don't even need work. It's like, hey, Can you do them super quick and unbroken over and over and over again? Because if not, then that's where you build, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. So we're gonna hit a good bit of that stuff. What can you say about the lower body like squat volume and what we're gonna be getting into with like some front squatting and back squatting? Can you touch on a little bit of that?
Yeah, so we're gonna have like a front squat, back squat kind of progression where you kind of go back and forth with them, and it's just kind of to build some volume tolerance, I guess. You know, build some strength. But when I think of squatting, obviously they need to get stronger. But we all know that when quarterfinals comes around, all this stuff, they love to get quite a bit of volume when it comes to squatting, right? We don't know if that's in the form of, you know, what they did a couple of years ago where you did 150 wall balls, or we don't know if it's more of, you know, they could do a ladder like they did with the clean and jerk, and it could be squat cleans or something like that. Who knows? You don't know. You got to be ready for it. So a lot of this squatting is just get you stronger, but also get used to some volume tolerance as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a big overlooked aspect again, is that athletes that want to get strong just tend to hang around lower rep schemes, or they don't pay attention to rest intervals, or they don't pay attention to working sets. They lose the nuance of like why they're doing the thing just to do the thing. And we want athletes to understand why they're doing the thing so that they can get better results. And part of this is, and a big word here in grit, part of this acronym is resiliency. Like that's what this squat cycle is building. It's resiliency. You're going to be very familiar with the bottom of your squat. We want you to improve and refine the mechanics of your squat, but we want you to be able to tolerate the thrusters, the overhead squats, the squat snatches, the squat cleans, the wall balls, the lunges, the step ups. And a good squat foundation gives you, and I'll use this term, you just got to build your CrossFit legs right now. Like you have to build your CrossFit legs, because then we'll have the ability to, and I mean, we'll be exploring this all new together for the first time as a staff. But when we talk about the open and we talk about it being important, or we talk about quarterfinals and it being important, man, I've had athletes do workouts twice in the same day to get the results they needed to go to the next level. Yep. Twice in the same day. If you can imagine not having your CrossFit legs and all you do is focus on building strength and power, but you don't have that volume tolerance and resiliency, and you got to do a workout that has, you know, let's just use an open example. It might be like a 7-minute AMRAP of thrusters and chest to bar pull-ups. But man, to get a good score, you're doing 68 thrusters. And now you got to turn around and do it again in 4 hours because the submission window is closing. You're not happy with it. You know, 5 more reps in that workout, which is, just think about that. That's so god awful that like we got to repeat a workout in 4 hours to get 5 more reps, and we have to go through all the 68 thrusters and 68 chest to bars, like whatever it might be. But the idea is that you have to have the resiliency physically to withstand that psychological challenge. Yep. And so that's what we're really building and preparing for from the squatting perspective and from other lifting perspectives as well. So I think when I looked back, I don't have the cycle pulled up right now, but we're squatting a total of 2 days every week with a third day, very different, but we're just basically touching the lift prior to some Olympic lifting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we squat every single Monday for sure. That's kind of our back squat, front squat progression. And then squatting, we throw in the mix of, it could be an IWT.
Yep.
Every other week it's in the Olympic lifts for both the snatch and the clean. And then, you know, depending on like Saturdays are more like, I look at them as like longer type workouts. So the volume is going to be up a little bit. So sometimes there may be some wall balls in there. There may be other movements like that, but just building some volume tolerance with all that.
Love it. Love it. So it's also important for people to understand contextually. It's like when you follow this grit cycle for the next 8 weeks, you will squat regularly, but there's variance in how we expose you to it. So yes, it's not always we're loading up your spine and hips with some, you know, terrible load that's going to really limit your output and everything else that we're doing, because of course there's a point of diminished returns, right?
Right.
And we'll talk about this a lot because that's what the whole reason I created this brand, TTRU, True Fitness, right? It stands for Train to Rise Up, but True Fitness, Greg Glassman has a quote out there that says true fitness is always a compromise, which means that like everything that we do costs us something else. So if we want to get stronger, we want to squat. Well, if you always squat heavy, you're losing squat stamina. If you always squat light and focus on stamina and endurance, you're losing some of your power and strength. If you always squat 3 days a week, guess what your conditioning and gymnastics start to look like? Trash, because you're smoked, right? So there's always this compromise that as programmers, we have to be in the know of when we write a program because of that. So I think people will enjoy that with this squat cycle. And I think the way that it's positioned in there really gives them room to actually feel good results. I've been a part of many different coaching cadres and experienced many different approaches. I mean, old school stuff, right? German volume training, the hatch squat cycle, all that stuff that's like, it's crazy, bro. But if you just survive it, you're like, I'm good. Like I could go through anything. The downside is that type of training doesn't stick. You have to stay in it in order for it to last. Like you can get really strong. You can do some really cool things with German volume training. But 2 weeks after German volume training is done, it's like this, the results are not there. And it's because it's such a hyper-focused training cycle that's just, you become a specialist, right? And so once you get back to playing the sport, it's for naught because you just grinded through those several weeks of all that squatting. So I like the way that we're executing this. And specifically, I like it because I think it's squatting that sticks and still gets you going in the direction that you want to go. What about pulling? What's pulling going to look like? Because of course we always want the balance. Is there more of an emphasis on squatting this cycle than deadlifting, or like, how are we going to incorporate that?
Yeah. So we have some deadlift stuff on Saturdays is where we have a program right now. And starting out, I just kind of took it as before the open positional stuff. So a lot of it is going to be at a tempo, and it's just to, in my opinion, easier on the body loading wise, right? If I'm a person who can deadlift 500 pounds, well, I got to be over 400 every single time to make these hard. So the tempo just kind of makes it a little bit easier on the body, but also just helps us kind of focus on positions, right? So, it's towards the end of the week. It's on a Saturday.
Yep.
We're probably feeling pretty beat up at that point. So we just keep it at a good tempo, work on the positions. And then, in the next cycle, if we feel that we still need some pulling, that's where we can start to ramp up the loading or the reps or whatever the case may be. But I just figured, still leading up to it, I would assume for most of these people, the open is not like, I mean, they're probably thinking top 25%. It's fine. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. So it's kind of like, hey, right now we're just kind of making a good base. We don't need us to go crazy. We have plenty of time for that. So
yes,
and all the deadlifts for sure, but also, you'll be pulling from the floor when it comes to the Olympic lifts too. I mean, we have some positional work that we're going to do with blocks beforehand, but we'll be pulling from the floor periodically with that as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate that about the cycle too. I think it's really important for people to understand that from a deadlift perspective, deadlift can do a lot of wonderful things for a body, and it's something that we believe is essential in training all year round. However, because there's a point of diminished returns, we have to think about what it does to you neurologically, because the deadlift is often the most weight that you'll ever move, picking something up. And of course, that's athlete to athlete dependent, of course, but we want that type of strength ratio. We always, if you squat, you should deadlift more than you squat, unless you're a specialist out there doing something else. In our sport, you need to deadlift more than you can squat. And so because of that point of diminished returns, we always want to think, what will training this, maxing it out or training it at a sub-maximal load, like 85% to 90% for triples or doubles, like what does that cost us? And the truth is it costs us a lot. And we can make it better through positional work, tempos like you're mentioning, and then even all the pulls that we do for Olympic lifts, those speed-based pulls for cleans and snatches. You will become a better hinger in general by doing those and focusing on the nuances and details of that. So I think that'll be great too, and I love its place. And it's also something that we have to do in pretty moderate to high volumes from a conditioning perspective.
Right.
So there's also not much room to like, oh, we want to deadlift heavy, and we want to go through 90 deadlifts at 225, 155 in this conditioning piece. Oh, and 2 days from now, we got to go through 150 dumbbell snatches from the ground, right? Like, so there's always those things in numbers wise that we're trying to schematically keep track of and format for you guys. And I think there'll be a good balance of that in this cycle. When it comes to conditioning from like a Metcon perspective, what could athletes expect? Is there a flow that will be like, hey, Mondays, it's going to kind of be this as an emphasis, Tuesdays, Wednesdays? What can people expect that are looking at this? And we don't have it pulled up right now for them to have a visual example, but what kind of picture could you paint for them?
Yeah. So Mondays are probably more going to be like interval based, right? Whether it's, a monostructural movement and gymnastic movement or whatever the case may be, but almost all of them are interval based. Hey, work, rest, and we vary it, whatever. Could be a minute on, a minute off, could be, every 4 minutes, whatever it is. I tried to write Tuesdays as like classic CrossFit. Hey, what would you, whether you would see it at .com or, an MWG or something that is going to be, you call it a burner.
Yep.
right? I mean, you're going to be feeling it after. Wednesdays are the IWTs that we do the interval weight trainings. Before that, we're doing like kind of what we talked about, some gymnastic work, some skill work beforehand, and then maybe some more, breathing gymnastics, if you want to call it that, where now you're working it at a little bit of a heart rate. And then Fridays we do the True Fitness throwdown.
Yep.
And then Saturdays is like a long kind of grinder.
Okay. And I noticed Saturdays too, and I've done this historically. We pull in some odd objects.
Odd objects, yep.
Yeah. Some odd objects, some sled stuff. There's substitution stuff in there, folks. Like we'll throw in some pegboard progressions, and there's pegboard work, but there's also some substitutions for it and things that we suggest and prescribe if you don't have access to those things. Same with, different variations of sandbag work and sleds. But we believe that even if they're not going to be tested in quarterfinals, these are things that will build a broader base of fitness for you. So there's a big reason and why it's incorporated in our training, even though it's not directly there, because I know there's a lot of people who out there, they want to just become open specialists and quarterfinal specialists. The downside is right now, 16 weeks out from the open, you're going to be hurt. If all you do is toes to bar and clean and jerks, and all you do is snatches and chest to bars, and all you do is these same movement patterns that we're only going to see in competition, we're now not following a good strength conditioning program. And that's what we want true competitor to be for people, is that we want them to get into it and be like, okay, this is a little different. Right. And where this leads me to bring up is the next question is like, from an accessory perspective, what kind of things are going to be incorporated in this grit cycle too, when it comes to like, these are the boxes that a lot of people love to ignore, but we try to check them as best we can for every program that we have.
Yeah. I mean, I have accessory in here at least 2 times a week. And a lot of it, I just kind of look back at the week and saw what we did. I would say for the majority of people, it's going to be shoulders. I would classify it as core, and then probably like knees, right?
Yep.
That's usually what it's going to be for everyone. So a lot of the accessory work is just, getting blood flow to the areas, keeping them healthy, keeping them feeling good. So we try to just do that. I think on like Tuesdays and Saturdays, we throw them in there. Sometimes before the workout, sometimes after the workout, because sometimes I feel like, hey, if I put them before the workout, they might just skip them and do the workout. So maybe
for sure
after.
Yep.
So we kind of mix and match with that. But yeah, I mean, just like what you said, like sleds and odd objects. Number one, I think that they're kind of fun, but number two, they can keep you healthy too. I mean, it's something different. It's not an even barbell, and sleds. I mean, you could do some horrible sled pushes, and then the next day you feel great. And you build your fitness, and you didn't have to worry about too much, and your spine's good. You didn't load the spine or anything like that. So I think throwing that stuff in is, even though we love CrossFit and want to get ready for quarterfinals, I mean, the end goal is to get to quarterfinals. You got to stay healthy. You got to stay feeling good.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it, man. I think that, again, most athletes who are left to their own devices, they overdo intensity, they underdo warm-ups and cool downs, and they get lost in volume. They get lost in chasing volume unintentionally, right? Like there's not a build. Yeah. We want there to be a build. We want there to be a system. And so through this grit cycle, that's what we're trying to provide for you guys, is a build into the preseason. We know this from years of this. If you guys didn't listen to the first episode where Chans and I talk about our origins together and how he got into CrossFit, it's like we both have a firm understanding of, like, basically when you come in with general fitness and you have a goal that you've been training for, you could be deconditioned, and we need 6 to 8 weeks to peak your conditioning for a thing. Now, will you be as resilient, and will you be as volume tolerant, and will you have the success that you can if you build up for 16 weeks? The answer is no. But our preseason is going to get that preseason peaking label coming at the turn of the new year. January, we will have a different cycle, and we will have a different focus that will ramp right into the open and quarterfinals. For now, we're building a broad base of fitness that is well-rounded strength conditioning, but the intended outcome is to help you optimize your performance in quarterfinals. If you're looking for a program like that, that is what we're offering with True Competitor Pro. You guys can get that in the all-access program that we offer. So all access will give you True Aesthetics, which is a different program, clearly different intended outcome. True Strength, different program, different intended outcome. We have got True Endurance that offers 18 different workouts every week. 3 days a week, there's 6 options for you to choose from mixed modal aerobic to mixed modal anaerobic to mixed modal erg work to mixed modal, anaerobic erg work, to all the different things that you might need or be limited to with your time and all the things. We offer that. This is all a part of All Access. And then, of course, the staple and why most people engage and follow our All Access program is True Competitor. And that's going to lead you to having the best 2026 season that you will have. Chan, is there anything that I left out about the program that you want to share and want to let people know about?
I don't think so. The only thing I would say is that we have the option of like some PM work with.
Okay. Yeah. Talk about the PM work real quick. Yes.
So we just have it twice a week, just kind of the same idea, right? If you want to get in there, have a PM session, cool. We offer like, an option twice a week, just kind of build in a bit of more work capacity, if you want to call it that. We don't need to be, digging ourselves in a hole early. So I feel like, hey, 2 days will come. There'll be time for a place for that. And sometimes I feel like, just like what you're saying, right? Everyone's looking at it and go, man, I'm so used to being in the gym for 2.5, 3 hours. This is not good. It's just like, hey, there's time and a place. I mean, look at professional athletes. I don't see, football players playing the game every single day. They're practicing, they're drilling. And then when the time comes, and then they have an off season, it's kind of the same deal. So we'll get there, but it's kind of a progression that we have with the ergs that we'll kind of work towards during these weeks as well. So it's just something to kind of throw in if they have the time. But I kind of wrote down, hey, main focus is get everything in that we need to. Don't just throw it in there because you want to and you didn't hit something else. That's kind of like priority number 2 in a sense.
Yeah. And people need to know this too. And I didn't touch on this, but what's a general session going to take them? Is it about 90 minutes?
Yeah, I would say around 90 minutes.
Okay. 90 minutes. If they're slow, maybe 2 hours, right?
If they're slow, 2 hours. Yeah. If you set it 2:00 and you kind of give yourself some, not resting 20 minutes and gabbing the whole time, you should be in and out around 90 minutes or so.
Yep. And then, of course, we'll offer the True Competitor Pro version where we just basically de-escalate some of the working sets and some of the volume in order to make it achievable in under 60 minutes. So we go in, we edit it a little bit. You'll see it says Competitor Pro if you have the All Access track when you pull it up on your phone. And it'll be an akin program, same desired stimulus, of course, different work volume. So if Chan's writes something and it says 8 rounds, True Competitor Pro is probably going to get 5. And part of the reason is because of the rest in between the rounds, the volume accumulated, and just the time that still must be spent on getting the meat and potatoes of the strength work done, and maybe even some of the accessories. Some of the accessories, True Competitor might get 4 sets of accessories. True Competitor Pro might get 2 sets, so that we're still getting touches on those joint contractions and some tempo and some time under tension, but it's going to be very different so that then you can still get the work in and get on with your day. But the idea is to have that same training mentality and approach. You just have a little bit more limited time and space. I could go on a rant, Chans, about the volume and about how people are always thrown with like, oh man, I need to go into the gym every day twice. It's like, that's very untrue. And the people at the top of our sport don't even do that anymore. Everybody's beyond that type of ignorance. It's almost more productive to, in fact, if you're not peaking directly for a competition. So people that were getting ready for Rogue, for example, in the build up to that, if they were pretty fresh, they probably should have been going into the gym, hitting a really hard session, leaving the gym, coming back, hitting another hard session, sometimes doing that 3 times in a day. That's a lot though. But most of them are professionals and they can do it. The reason that's important is because that simulates what a day at Rogue is like, what 3 days at Rogue is like, right? But to build a broad, general, and inclusive fitness that can take you to really, really high levels, we're talking literally the top 2 or 1% in our sport. You do not need to be in the gym more than 3 hours a day. It's completely unnecessary. And to warm up your body and to cool it down and all these things that take time are often less productive than having really dialed in 2-hour sessions that from warm up to cool down, everything is on purpose and it's on a time slot and you're listening to the rest and you're following what coach say. Oh, he said every 2 minutes. Cool. He said rest 2:30. Awesome. It says rest 90. Yes. Right. And then even what I always tell people, what helps you have good, fruitful, productive training? Look at your training the night before, as long as it doesn't make you a head case. Whole different separate episode there. We can talk about those head cases out there. But as long as it doesn't make you a head case, look at your training. Think about, map out your percentages. Oh, man, Chan's put that this has to be 80%. Okay, what's my 80%? Cool. I know I'm going to load that up. I probably need to hit a set at this and this before I'm ready. Cool. What's this need to be? Oh, it needs to be 95%. He says it need to be 25 foot distance between the barbell and the rig for transitions. Oh, I need a GHD. This is how I've set it up at the gym. Right? Like even having, for me, for years, and you know this, Chans, because you own a gym and you're still in the thick of it with like, yo, all I want to do is work out, but all these people want to do is bother me, is that if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. Yeah. So I say people all the time, if you're limited on time, but you want to get it all in and you start to feel like you're running out of stuff, plan your point of execution. And then once it's time, sometimes this helps too. If you're a coach, put on some headphones, because people have a harder time talking to you and they're like, oh, I see, he's got his headphones on. Like, I need to back off. Well, put on your headphones, even if you don't got no music in it. Sometimes it works. Trust me, I do this stuff. And because people are just hard, they want to break through that barrier less. But have that plan and go execute it cleanly. And I think you guys will go a long way. But hopefully this episode gets you guys fired up a little bit about what's to come. We're very excited. I'm super excited to have Chance on the staff and be designing for True Competitor. He's got a unique skill set and talent. We are peas in a pod when it comes to our simplicity and love for CrossFit and the ways that we want to help other people get better at it and the tactics that we use to do it. So that's kind of where our partnership came from. I think, anybody that wants to know more can go to truefitness.com, TTRUfitness.com. This cycle does kick off 11/10, so don't sleep on it. Go ahead and pull it up. We give you guys a week free of all access, so you could click into all access and take a look at week 1 and at least get an idea. I'm going to try to drop this podcast as soon as I can so that it gives everybody time to hopefully take a listen or give it a watch and be excited about this grit cycle. Am I missing anything else, man? What else you want to add?
I think that's pretty much it.
Cool. Well, I'll let you get back to the family, man. I'm excited, and we'll touch base on some things to come, but we'll keep these episodes coming. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. That's what you're supposed to say, I think. And then if you're listening to this on your podcast, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, which you probably did. And what we'd love from you guys is to reach out. Chance, what's your Instagram handle, man? You got to start posting on Instagram, bro.
I know. It's just at Chance Porter. Simple.
At Chance Porter. You don't even have like a look at mine. You see that little underscore?
Nope.
There's some other chump named Adrian Conway out there, man. I want to kick him in his chest because I gotta have that. At Adrian Conway _ but you guys can reach us at Chance Porter on Instagram or at Adrian Conway _ You could also email us at TrueFitness or info@truefitness.com and we'll get back to any of these questions. But what we're looking for is I'd like for you guys to ping us with subjects that you would like for us to discuss, topics that you think need to be addressed. We keep our minds and ears on all things CrossFit, so it could be out there. But what we're really thinking about is bringing you value from lifestyle and training that you might feel like you're missing out on out there somewhere. So we'll try to give you our honest opinion and some ways to maneuver some of this stuff. And again, between the two of us, I mean, I've co-owned an affiliate. He's owned an affiliate. We both head coached at affiliates that weren't even our ownership either. We're both level 3 coaches. I've been on seminar staff for a decade. So it's like there's a lot of experience between the two of us, and I think that we can help you guys tackle a lot of things. So feel free to reach out. Please comment and give us some things that you want to hear us talk about in the future. And if you don't, we're going to come up with them ourselves. So you might as well say something and try to get some value out of this. But Chance, I appreciate you, brother. I'm going to let you get back to your family, and I'm going to get back to mine as well. And folks, if you're listening, keep doing your best in everything you do and keep rising.